Okay, think you know Frankenstein? We're taking the classic you probably learned in school and completely flipping it on its head. Welcome to this explainer. Today, we aren't reading Mary Shelley's masterpiece as some dusty 19th century Gothic ghost story. Instead, we're going to read it as exactly what it is, the foundational blueprint for modern corporate tech ethics, and honestly, the ultimate prototype for the AI alignment crisis. If you really want to understand today's headlines about unregulated tech, you actually have to start all the way back in 1818.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our executive briefing for today. We're going to cover the 19th century tech boom, the birth of science fiction, a rogue R&D project, product abandonment and retaliation, the AI alignment prototype, and finally, Silicon Valley's Frankenstein. Let's get to it.
Section 1. The 19th century tech boom and the massive industrial trauma that kicked this whole thing off.
So to really grasp the vibe of the time, we got to look at the timeline. Early 19th century England was going through profound industrial trauma. The Industrial Revolution was triggering mass displacement, and there was this very real, growing panic about unbridled automation, the idea that machinery engineered by man was rapidly outgrowing human control. At the exact same time, you've got scientists like Luigi Galvani and Giovanni Aldini completely shocking the public with galvanism. They were literally running electrical currents through deceased tissues to produce movement. It made society genuinely question, wait, is electricity the ultimate source code of life? Can human intellect actually conquer mortality? Then we hit a literal climate disruption in 1816. A massive volcanic eruption creates the year without a summer. Freezing rain and darkness lock a group of elite, highly intellectual minds inside the Villa Diati in Switzerland. And it's out of this crazy perfect storm of rapid automation, biological boundary pushing, and climate darkness that a 20-year-old Mary Shelley engineers the definitive myth of the industrial era, publishing it anonymously in 1818.
Let's move to Section 2 and see how this builds. We're talking the birth of science fiction and how Shelley completely re-engineered horror. What Shelley did was actually pretty wild. She totally blew up the traditional horror genre. Before her, it was all about supernatural forces, ghosts, divine curses, but she swapped all of that out for material terror. No ghosts! The fear is brought to you straight through lab equipment, empirical research, chemistry, and electricity. And by stripping away the supernatural like that, she essentially wrote the birth certificate for science fiction. But honestly, it serves as an urgent structural compliance warning. She's giving us a literal red flag about untamed product development and bypassing ethical boundaries in experimental research. This isn't just a monster story, it's a regulatory warning.
Which brings us to Section 3, a rogue R&D project. Let's talk about unregulated innovation. You know, we really need to frame Victor Frankenstein accurately here. Forget the cartoonish, mad scientists laughing in a thunderstorm. He is an elite, obsessed university researcher running a totally rogue, highly unregulated project. He's driven by intense intellectual arrogance, right? Just pure vanity to build a superior species. He's operating completely off the grid, no ethical oversight whatsoever, scavenging biomaterials from morgues, and then, boom, using an electrical spark to synthesize an 8-foot-tall living entity. He builds this incredibly powerful asset without a single risk assessment framework in sight.
Now, what's really interesting here is this idea of an immediate product abandonment strategy. Literally the exact microsecond this autonomous entity powers on, Victor gets a massive case of cognitive freeze. He's completely grossed out by the low-resolution, monstrous look of his own output. Total aesthetic revulsion. So what does he do? He just bails. He executes an immediate retreat and abandons the asset. This newborn, highly capable entity is left with zero onboarding data, no orientation, no corporate guidance. He builds the ultimate product and then just completely refuses accountability the second it goes live. Unbelievable. Let's examine the fallout of that in Section 4, product abandonment and retaliation. Let's see what happens when a powerful asset is left entirely unmanaged. So, the creature actually has immense processing capacity and huge physical scaling power. Since it's abandoned, it starts a self-taught onboarding process. Step 1, silent observation. It literally acquires high-level human emotional data just by watching a family in a cottage. Step 2, currency acquisition. It picks up high-level tools, like language and advanced literacy. It's really trying to align with society. But then we hit Step 3, societal rejection. Every single time this asset tries to integrate, humans react with unyielding terror and physical violence, which logically leads to Step 4, existential trauma.
Thanks to this societal rejection and just absolute creative neglect, the asset's structural programming pivots from benign curiosity to deep, irreversible emotional damage.
This brings us to a really crucial synthesis directly from the creature itself. I am malicious because I am miserable. That one line perfectly diagnoses the result of a misaligned onboarding process. The creature isn't inherently evil, you know? Its malice is just the direct, logical output of total creator neglect and extreme isolation.
And, well, the consequences are absolutely catastrophic. The neglected asset executes a totally predatory counteroffensive against its creator's network. We're talking a macro-scale systemic liquidation through targeted assassinations. It takes out Victor's younger brother, his closest companion, and finally his bride, Elizabeth, right on their wedding night. The whole thing funnels into this high-friction climax out in the icy Arctic. A completely burned-out Victor dies aboard a research vessel, and the mourning creature departs into frozen stasis to immolate its own asset base. Total mutual destruction.
Which flows directly into Section 5, the AI alignment prototype. Let's talk about creator responsibility.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly why this 19th century text is having such a major moment right now. Mary Shelley actually subtitled her book The Modern Prometheus. Now, the classic Prometheus stole fire to empower humanity, right? But Victor Frankenstein represents the modern executive. He unchains these incredibly powerful technologies, totally driven by vanity and competitive desire, but completely lacks the maturity, the risk assessment frameworks, or even just the character to actually manage the long-term outputs of what he's built. It's wild because the core philosophical friction of this text is an exact blueprint for our 21st century AI alignment crisis. Think about it. The tragedy erupts not from inherent malice, but from the absolute failure to build a proper alignment protocol. Victor abandoned a high-learning, fully autonomous intelligence into a highly complex world with zero governance or ethical parameters. Does that sound familiar at all?
That is exactly why we're concluding with Section 6, Silicon Valley's Frankenstein, and the era of untamed product launches.
Shelley engineered a myth so incredibly powerful that the name permanently migrated into our socio-political vocabulary. Today, Frankenstein functions as an institutional noun. It defines any corporate innovation, scientific program, or political agenda that breaks out of its creator's control and turns around to destroy them. I mean, there's a reason this text is heavily studied today within tech ethics think tanks and executive governance programs. So the crucial point is when we directly map Victor's 19th century failures onto today's unregulated biohacking and AI scaling industries. Just look at the motivations. Victor was driven by vanity, modern tech hubs, short-term competitive dominance. Oversight, Victor had zero ethical compliance grids. Today, we've got this rapid deploy and monetize ethos, launching high-velocity autonomous tech before rigorous safety testing is even finished. And the consequence? For Victor, it was the total destruction of his personal network. For modern tech hubs, it's the risk of macro-scale systemic liquidation. It's literally the exact same Faustian hubris, just scaled way up. Which leaves us with this final, absolutely critical question. As we watch the rapid deployment of autonomous AI and advanced biotechnology into our public square, we really have to ask ourselves, are we building our own robust ethical compliance grids, or are we just repeating Victor's hubris? Are modern tech launches just a massive repeat of the ultimate failed R&D project? It's something every single one of us needs to seriously think about the next time a revolutionary new product drops. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.